Perfect. Thank you, Christina. Welcome.
Okay. Okay, let me just put this in play mode. Hang on just a second, guys. There we go. There we go. Can you see it full screen, everyone? Just give me a thumbs up, anyone. Dominique,
we can see the next slide with the notes. So it looks like you may be running into the same challenges that Kate had in the morning.
Huh. Let me go back. That is bizarre. Can I just let me try to do it again a different way. Is that still the same thing?
We are seeing your presentation with your slides to the left.
Okay, so you're seeing topics for today and not funding your future, right?
We are seeing the slide funding your future, the first one. It's
okay.
The normal outline. If you want to do the presentation mode and perhaps change the display setting. So if you try it again, let's see if that works.
Okay. Okay, let me try it by going to view.
Christina, a suggestion was put in the box that if you go up on your red bar at the very top next to the refresh button and click that little screen to the right of it, just to the right of that. That's the left.
Right
next
here.
one to the next one to the right.
Right here?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that looks better. Does that work? Did that work, Julia?
It has not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, that is just bizarre.
Or you can go to slideshow instead of where you went to view. You could go to slideshow.
Down at the bottom?
In your tabs on the red.
I don't see the tabs on the red.
Where you went when you chose view a moment ago?
Yes.
It's just under the 2023 in your red bar. There you go, slideshow. Yep. And then from the beginning. On the far left of your top, straight up from there you go.
Right here? Which one do you want me to pick?
On your right up from that slide that you're on.
Yeah.
Go straight up.
Oh, from the beginning here.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, is that looking any better?
Oh, that brings us back to your.
Yes. So if you see, Christina, there's display settings there. The one of the 3 tabs before you close it out. So let's go back to from beginning. Apologies for these technology challenges, but
and then display settings here.
Yes, and see if you can change that. Swap presenter view and slideshow.
How's that?
This works.
This
outstanding.
You guys are seeing funding your future.
We can see your topics for today.
Topics for today.
We can see that. Wonderful. Thank you, Christina.
We're rocking and rolling. Okay, so let's get started. Hi, everyone. Sorry. Sorry you had to go through this little bit of technology. Nitnoids, a word that I just made up, so don't look that up. We're going to go over the Funding Your Future presentation in general terms because there are some new changes to the FAFSA coming, and I'm sure Tanika will go over some of those on Thursday. I believe she's scheduled.
Yes, tomorrow. Thursday. I apologize. You are correct, Christina.
Yes, Thursday. And hopefully she'll go over some of the changes in more detail. I'm going to go through them in a general sense to give you enough to get the gist of it, but certainly not in any details. And then I'm going to go over what we normally go over, financial aid in general, which is going to cover the topics that we have listed on the screen, and minus the GI, the military information, unless you guys work with the military audience. I happen to work with a military audience, so I normally go through the FAFSA as it relates to the military. I skip it for all others that are not military. So when we start getting to the loan portion, you'll know that I'm wrapping it up. It can seem like it's a long, daunting presentation. I usually cut it up to whatever audience I have. How much time do I have in this one, Dominica, just so that I can keep track of myself?
You still have 45 minutes,
Okay,
Christina.
that's about what it'll take. So we'll go through that. Just a quick definition of post-secondary education so that we're all on the same page. Post-secondary is anything after high school. Secondary obviously is middle school, high school, post, meaning after. So anything after, whether it's workforce skills training, 2-year college, 4-year college, vocational, technical, even apprenticeships, even though it doesn't necessarily have to be something that students pay for. It's anything where they can hopefully get any kind of training or knowledge to do a job, and you even get it with the military. So that's post-secondary. And when we talk about financial aid as it relates to post-secondary, we're primarily talking about financial aid in the form of any kind of monies that will help them pay for the kind of training or knowledge they need to pay for. And with that usually comes standard costs of attendance at college or training program, whichever they choose to go to, and then other costs. Your standard costs would include tuition, your student fees, your room and board, that's where you live, where you eat, or in this case, where the student lives, where they eat, books and supplies. These are all pretty standard costs that everyone's going to have to pay when they go to a college or training program. The other costs include transportation costs. If they're going to a college on the other side of the country, they have to fly there, they have to fly back. These other incidental costs are, believe it or not, taken into consideration, as are dependent care expenses if they have a child. Expenses related to a disability, personal and miscellaneous expenses. There's usually a big tag on that other or personal miscellaneous. Bottom line is, when students search websites, they have what's called a cost of attendance. This is an important thing to know, because the cost of attendance is not necessarily what a student pays the college or training program. And I'm just going to, in the essence of keeping it shorter, I'm just going to say college, but please know that I mean college and training. I'm not picking my favorite of college, and training is not the ball-headed stepchild. I like them equally. I'm totally unbiased. So I'm just going to refer to college. So if the college is listing on their website, this is the cost of attendance, that means that if they receive any kind of financial aid in the form of scholarships, grants, loans, they can only use up to the amount of the cost of attendance. In other words, if they're, and I'm going to keep this very simple, if their cost of attendance is $10,000, but they received a $12,000 scholarship, they can only use at that college $10,000 of that scholarship. Does that make sense? So that's what the cost of attendance is. So most of the times when students are searching colleges' websites, they'll show what their cost of attendance is. It'll look like this really high exaggerated number, and they're doing that not to freak everybody out, but to let the student possibly get as much financial aid as they can. That's why in many cases there will be that other category. And if you can see this, this, for example, is like UAA. Under personal and miscellaneous, they have tuition listed at $5,616. They have student fees at $1,351. And then under the other costs, actually, I can't see because all of our photos, there we go. I just moved us. Under personal and miscellaneous, they have that price tag of $6,426. So they're going to on paper or on website make it look like it's this enormous amount of money. What students need to know is that that's not what they are actually going to pay the college. In many cases, what they're going to pay is going to be a lot less, unless they have all these other things like needing to fly back and forth and all these other miscellaneous expenses that they need. But what they use this cost of attendance for at colleges is just to get a basic, to give the student a basic frame of reference of what they could be paying if they included every single thing you can possibly think of. Now, obviously, the cost of attendance at UAA, a state school, is in the neighborhood of about $34,000. And that's pretty normal for state colleges. Private colleges like Harvard, the cost of attendance is closer to about $80,000. Here again, when you're looking at the cost of attendance, before you think, oh my goodness, there's no way a student, you can afford $80,000 a year. Something to keep in mind is that a lot of the private colleges, in this case, Harvard is a private college, UAA is a state college. The private colleges oftentimes have larger endowments to work with and more money, a bigger pot of money that they can use for students to give in terms of scholarship. Now, Harvard and other Ivy League schools, many of them will give students whose income is below a certain number, and I've seen it as high as $60,000. They'll waive the tuition, meaning that if that student goes to their college, if they were eligible, if they were accepted, they're going to waive the full tuition cost. That doesn't mean they're going to waive all the other student fees and everything else that the student is going to pay. But these are things to keep in mind, or at the very least, you guys as go-to people will know how to explain it to students so that they don't say, I can't afford this college, I have to go to this college, when they're probably, they could be accepted at Harvard. So now I'll define financial aid, which is any kind of money. In short, it's basically any kind of money that's going to help a student pay for their college. It could be scholarships, which is scholarships are based on merit, something that the student has to apply for and earn. It could be because they're in the band, because they have high grades, because they have art projects, whatever they submitted their application for. It's something that they filled out an application for, they applied for it, and they earned it. A grant, on the other hand, and a lot of students get these words mixed up. A grant is not a scholarship. They don't have to earn it. They have to apply for it by filling out the FAFSA, but a grant is free money based on need. What need means is that it's because the family is either a really large family or it's a lower income family. So it's based on finances for the most part. Work study is a job that the student will work, and half of their salary is usually subsidized by either the state or the federal government, and the other half is paid for by the college, which means that if a student is eligible for work study and they only work 10 to 20 hours a week, we'll go into more detail on this later, but it usually means that most colleges would rather hire a student that is work study eligible versus one that's not, mainly because it saves them money, because it's being subsidized by some sort of government entity. And then loans, of course, are money that students borrow and they pay back with interest, and we'll go over that section as well. Another thing that is important to remember is that when financial aid is awarded, it's awarded on a yearly basis. So if a student goes to a college with 2 semesters and a summer semester, it'll be divided usually by 2 semesters, unless the student notifies the college financial aid office that they're going to be going to college and they want that money divided by 3 semesters, by the fall, the spring, and the summer. Otherwise, it's normally divided by 2 semesters at that college. Now, every college will do it differently. If it's a college that has quarters. They'll divide it by 4 quarters. So whatever money is awarded, it's always going to be awarded by the year for a full academic year. Let's talk about academic years, because this is kind of a confusing topic too. Academic years run from August 1st through the end of July. That just like you've been going to school your whole life. It starts usually in August or September. In this case, it starts August 1st and it runs all the way through the end of July, through the end of summer school. So this year, for example, this year is the 23-24 academic year, thus the 23-24 FAFSA. It started August 1st and it's going to end at the end of July. That's the way academic years work. You'll need to know this, and this is important because when you're filling out financial aid paperwork, they're going to ask you for 2 years prior for that academic year that the student will be going to college. Well, if they're going to college in this academic year, which will start anytime from August 1st, but say they're not starting August 1st, they're starting September 1st, that's still in the 23-24 academic year. So 2 years prior is the tax information that financial aid works with. It's going to be 2 years prior to this academic year, which makes it 2021. So that's how you figure it out and kind of keep track. Just 2 years prior to the academic year that the student is going to college in. So where does it all start? It starts with the FAFSA. And of course, this year, the FAFSA is new. It's going to change, and it's going to have major drastic changes, not only with technology, but the face of the website, how the questions are asked, and various things about the FAFSA will change. How it's awarded, terminology, usage, the whole nine yards, which you guys will learn more in detail again from Tanika on Thursday. But it still stands for pre-application for federal aid. We say that because it's a completely free form to fill out. If a student is asked to pay a fee, that's either because they are willingly wanting to pay the fee to someone who's helping them fill it out as a business, or because they could be at a wrong website. There are many services and agencies and organizations that help students, including us, absolutely free. And so you needn't spend any kind of money to fill out this form. Save your money, use it to pay for college. It's just a matter of contacting the right people to get help filling out this form. But it stands for free application for federal student aid. It's the first step in the financial aid process, and it's administered by the Department of Education. Now, normally it comes out every October. And this year is the exception because they're late. They're late because it's not ready. It's going to come out sometime in December. When in December, we don't exactly know yet. We're hoping December 1st, but things change. There are many changes to this that may hold it up even more. So the student should get used to filling it out every October, except this year. And a good rule of thumb is about 10 months before the student plans to start college. In other words, for seniors this year, and this is also a tricky thing too, because for some reason, the normal thing to do is to fill it out a month or two before you go to college. That's how students think, because they don't know. They're not trained to know what the FAFSA is. That's our job, is to try to teach them and help navigate them through this. So they start filling it out the October of their senior year in high school.
Go to messenger text still down.
What was that? Was that a question?
No, I apologize, Christina. We do, however, have one question, and I don't know if you would like to take questions at the end, or would you like to respond to the questions when they come in the chat box?
Yeah, we can do it as they come in. So the question that came in is, what is the minimum GPA to be eligible? Is that the question?
Yes, that was the question that came in.
There's no minimum GPA to be eligible for the FAFSA. You have to meet, however, I want to qualify that by saying the student should meet whatever minimum GPA is required for admissions to their college or training program, if there is one. Some may require one, some may not, depending on the college. But the FAFSA is completely separate of the GPAs. I hope I answered that question. So this is not a scholarship. This is just a form, but I'm glad you asked that, because that leads me to the, should everybody fill out a FAFSA? Yes, everybody should fill out a FAFSA. The only reason a student should not fill out a FAFSA is if they have the means to write out a check or put it on their credit card or directly pay for their college. Otherwise, a lot of students seem to be under the impression that if they're going to be given a scholarship, say a full ride scholarship, maybe a full ride academic or a full ride sports scholarship of some sort, they seem to think they do not have to fill out the FAFSA, and that's not true. To receive scholarships, 95% of them will require that you fill out the FAFSA. Usually the only ones that don't are the scholarships that are awarded directly to the student in their name. It doesn't go through the school. Otherwise, most everybody will have to fill out this form.
It would be 2/26.
So this is, again, the universal form. Every student should get into the habit of filling it out. So what is it used for? Well, it's one form, but this one form is going to open the door for 3 different buckets of money. Money from the federal government, money from the state that the college is located in, and in some cases, the state that the student is from, or both, and individual campus aid. So federal money, state aid, and individual campus aid. Now you'll be able to find out fairly quickly after submitting the FAFSA what kind of federal money you'll be getting. What the student may have to wait for is what they'll be getting from state agencies. And again, that could be the state that the student is a resident from, or the state, in particularly the state that the college is located in. For example, a student goes to college in the state of Arizona. The federal money, whatever they're eligible for from the federal government, will travel with them from state to state, from Alaska to California to Montana to Arizona. It'll all be the same, the amount that they're eligible for. What will differ is what the state of Arizona is going to offer them, the state of California, the state of Montana. Those will all be different, and they will be triggered to contact the student, usually through the college, but in many cases on their own via email, because when they fill out the FAFSA, they're asked to list the colleges that they are interested in going to. And when they list those colleges, they have to list the states that those colleges are located in. That's what triggers the state financial aid agencies to contact the student. Us, for example, the state of Alaska, we're the state higher education agency for the state of Alaska, or the state financial aid office, whatever, however you want to define us. That's one of our missions. So when a student fills out a FAFSA and they list any college within the state of Alaska, we're going to automatically get their information. And if they're eligible for our grant, then we will contact the student with an email to say, hey, you could be eligible for a grant. As soon as we are triggered, which is usually a week or 2 after a student submits a FAFSA, we usually send a notification email to the student anyway. And all states work differently. I can't speak for every state. I can only speak for Alaska, but we generally work the same way. So we generally contact the student right away just to touch base with them and say, hey, you could be, everybody's going to get that, you could be eligible, be looking for more emails from us. And then we actually send our, yes, you are definitely eligible for our grant, golly, sometimes we don't send that. Usually it's supposed to come out in May, but sometimes it's been as late as June, at the end of June, or even July by the time we send. This year it was really late when we sent the information out to students. But usually it's in May, in June, in that time frame where we notify students on our state grant. But a student should fill this form out as soon as it's available. Usually, again, if it comes out in October, the October of their senior year, they want to start filling it out as soon after October as possible. I usually recommend waiting until the end of October to let them work out all the kinks and problems that are going to happen with technology, so that they can get through it smoothly. In this case, it's not going to come out till December. So seniors of this year will not be filling this form out until December. I recommend just wait till January. Wait till the holidays are over. They're going to be applying for their PFD. They can apply for this at the same time. That way they can use the whole month of December if it comes out that time. For us, people that are dealing with this new FAFSA, to get better trained at helping them go through it a little with more knowledge on the new form. And not that we don't have it now, it's just that practice makes you better, and you learn the tips, the tricks, all of that. And at the beginning, with a completely revamped form, there are bound to be little troubleshooting things that need to take place, or technology problems that need to take place. So I recommend waiting until January. Here's the thing though, don't wait until too much after January, primarily because state deadlines for their free money in the form of grants and or scholarships start as early as the middle of February. In the state of Alaska, most UA state schools have their deadline at February 15th, which doesn't give an Alaskan a big window to get their FAFSA filled out. What this means, in short, is the sooner the student can fill it out, that ensures that their name goes to the top of the list when other free money is being handed out, which often goes by the date that the FAFSA was submitted. In our case, for example, the Alaska Education Grant, which we'll be talking about more in detail on Thursday. We go by the date that the FAFSA was submitted. So if your name is at the top of the list, because you filled it out early, and you're eligible for the Pell Grant, odds are you're going to get our grant. But if you waited until the last minute, you waited until May or June, if we have money left over, the student could eke in and still get that grant, but there's a big probability that they won't. They'll get their Pell money, which is, $7,000, but they could get an additional $3,000 to $4,000 from us simply by filling out this form earlier. The same thing works with the SEOG grant, which is a federal grant offered through colleges, which we'll talk about more in detail. So in short, the student wants to fill this form out as soon as possible to ensure that they're maximizing their potential for the free money. Everybody's going to be eligible for the loans, but what students want to do is maximize their potential for the free money, because nobody wants to take out a loan unless they absolutely have to. So make sure that students know that they should be filling out this form, not only to receive scholarships, but they want to do it as soon as possible so that they can throw their name in the hat for the free money, should there be any extra free money, as soon as possible. They're at the top of the list, not at the bottom. So this is what the new website looks like. They get to it by going to studentaid.gov. They can still, if they're old school and they still go to fafsa.ed.gov, they will still be redirected, but I would get into the habit of just letting them know it's studentaid.gov. This is what it looks like on a desktop version. They still have to log in, and we're going to get to that in a minute, but I wanted to show you this too. This isn't they don't have the updated slide for the desktop or for the phone version, but most students that I work with, they just prefer to do it on their phone. It's user friendly, it's easy. and they can do it just as quick by doing it on their phone. But again, this is what the website looks like. If a student or family has not created an account, it's going to be imperative this year that they create an account as soon as possible, because there will be that 3-day waiting period. A student will have to log in to fill out the FAFSA. Now, this is one of the changes. In prior years, you could create an account, and that very day, as your information is being cross-checked with the Social Security Administration, which usually takes on average about 3 days, but you could still fill out the FAFSA. Now, this is one of the changes. The change is that even as of right now, this change has already been implemented. If someone creates an account for the first time and they've never had an account before, they're going to have to wait 3 days before they can log in and fill out the FAFSA. Now, this happened, we thought this was going to be implemented in December, but it actually, I fill out FAFSAs pretty frequently on a weekly basis with students, and learned that, nope, it's already been implemented. That 3-day waiting period, they have to wait before they log in, which is why when you're meeting with students, the sooner they can create their account, if they've never had an account ever before, the better off they will be, because it's going to take a minimum 2 steps, 2 time periods to complete the FAFSA. Now, odds are going to be very high that if parents have ever had a loan, a grant, a scholarship, or some sort of financial aid, they already have an account. So parents will more than likely already have accounts. If they do, they don't have to go through that waiting period. They may have to go through troubleshooting to remember their login information, but they won't have to go through that waiting period. So if anyone who has used a FAFSA before and they can't remember, which happens a lot, people will not remember that they filled out a FAFSA, but they will remember if they received a grant, a student loan, or a scholarship to pay for any kind of college class sometime in the past. If they have any time in the past, no matter how long ago it was, odds are they have an account. And once you're in the system, you're in the system. So you don't have to redo your account. You just have to update your login information and re-verify your email and re-verify your password. So we're going to go back to this, create an account, because this is the most important step, because if you don't do it right from the get-go, it's not going to work. And it's going to open up a Pandora's box of problems. So tip number 1 for creating an account: have a good working email. Students and parents should have a good working email that they check on a regular basis from their phone if needed. Not a work email, not a school email, not anything that will disappear once the student or the parent no longer belongs to that organization. So do not let students use their school email. I know they're in the habit of using school emails, but school emails usually disappear within about 6 months from the time the student graduates. So all of the information, if they've used their school email, all of the information that FAFSA is trying to get to them is going to be going to that email that no longer exists. And then they have to go through a whole different troubleshooting process, which may involve taking a photocopy of their ID, emailing it back to FAFSA, and waiting for a whole different period of time to get to go through a re-verification process with FAFSA. The easiest way to do it is to use a Gmail, Yahoo, a Hotmail, anything that they can check from their phone. And then you need to remind students who are in the habit these days of constantly changing emails. They have 4 or 5 emails floating around out there. Remind them that this is a very important government website that has their social security number, their birthday, all kinds of personal information about them. This is an email that they don't want to just easily throw away or delete unless they absolutely have to. because they were hacked or something. This is an email, even if they have to create a whole new email just to use for their financial aid and keep track of it reverently, then that's what they want to use. The same for the parent. It's not an email that they want to. They definitely don't and cannot crisscross and use each other's emails. In other words, parents cannot use students' emails and vice versa. It's not recommended that they use their brothers, their sisters, their boyfriends' emails. It should be their own unique email. Otherwise, it will open up a Pandora's box, because what happens is every single time the student will log into their FAFSA to make a change, to submit their FAFSA, and they will be doing this for the duration that they're in college. This is a form that they fill out once a year, preferably every October, except for this year in December. So every year they will have to do this, and every single time they log in, they're going to have to go through a two-step verification, which means they're going to send a code to either their cell phone number if they verified their phone, or to their email if they, everybody has to have an email. The option to have a phone is either or, but everybody has to have an email to create an account at the very least. So every time they log in, a code will be sent to them, and they'll have to go through that two-step. I'm just going to look at this question real quick if we have one. Yes, that is correct about the high school email. Do not use a high school email because it does disappear. And work emails disappear also, so don't use work emails. Use your own. But again, the student will go through the two-step verification every single time they log in. It's annoying, but it's needed, and it's to protect the student's identity so that nobody steals their information. And quite honestly, if somebody steals the student's FAFSA information, they could proceed to take out a whole bunch of loans in the student's name. So these little rules are and steps are there to protect the student. So they will have to go through that every single time they log in, which is why they want their own unique email. And they want to triple check. I know students they type things fast. They are fast movers. But in this case, double check social security numbers and birth dates, because that will hold things up with the Social Security Administration as well. Ways to complete the FAFSA. Well, we don't recommend doing the paper version. The highly recommended version is the online version for a couple of reasons. You get the information back a lot quicker, and the schools get the information quicker. If a student does the paper version, they still have to go to the website, download the form. They can do the paper version, manually sign it. That's to be used on a last case scenario if you really can't troubleshoot an FSA ID to sign online, and you have to sign it. But just keep in mind, if a student signs a paper version and mails it in the old-fashioned way, that's how all of the information about what they're eligible for will get to them. So it'll take a longer period of time for them to get the information. And if they've waited until the last minute to fill out this form, it may hold things up, and a student may not be able to start college when they were planning to. So it's always best to do it online for quicker results. Again, they can do it from their phone. That's how 90% of the students that I work with prefer to do it. It's just quicker and easier. We do Zooms where they can do a Zoom right from their phone and fill out the FAFSA. New this year is that both the consent will have to be given to the IRS. So the IRS data retrieval that we used to use in the past will no longer be used. It will go directly to the IRS and move that information onto the FAFSA. So consent must be provided, or the student or parent will not be able to fill out the FAFSA. In other words, both the student and parent have to give consent. If consent is not given, and they say no, or they don't do it, then the student will not be eligible for federal aid. So consent must be given. They're going to transfer the IRS information directly from the IRS. Student status is still the same, only it looks like this now. So a student will either be independent or dependent, and most students, traditional students who are graduating from high school, will be considered dependent, meaning that parents will more than likely have to fill out the FAFSA and submit their information. So they will be inviting their parents to submit, fill out their portion of the FAFSA. The only things that make a student independent, and you probably can't read this tiny little screen, but if a student is 24, if a student is married, if they have a child, and they can provide proof that they provide more than 50% of the support for that child, if they're in the military, if they've ever been a ward of the court or a ward of the state, or in foster care anytime after the age of 13, even for one day, these are things that make the student independent. If any of those things apply, and if they can check a box to any of these, that will automatically make them independent, meaning they can fill out this FAFSA form by themselves. They do not have to invite any parent to fill out this form. Most of them, however, will be checking none of the above, or none of these apply, which means that they are dependent, which means that they will then have to invite a parent to fill out the form with them, which we'll get to in just a minute. Again, if they're independent, this you can read a little bit better. I forgot I had this slide in there. They were born for the 23-24 FAFSA. That's this year's FAFSA, not next year's FAFSA. If they were born before January 1st, 2000, they're married, they're a graduate or professional student, a veteran, a member of the armed forces, an orphan, a ward of the court, someone with legal dependents other than a spouse, an emancipated minor, or someone who's been homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. Okay, now if they are in none of those categories, if they have unusual, this is new also, there are different set of circumstances. There will be other or special circumstances. I've heard it pronounced both ways, so I just put other/special. And then there are unusual circumstances. Now, if there are unusual circumstances or special circumstances where a student needs to request an override of some sort. An override means, look, I am a student who has a mom and dad who have a house, but my mom and dad are alcoholics or drug addicts, and it's a dangerous situation. We don't get along, and it puts me in harm's way to ask my parents to fill out the FAFSA. That puts them in an unusual circumstance. They can request what's called an override through the college or training program that they're going to. Only the director, the financial aid director of that college or training program, can award what's called the aid adjustment or override of dependency status or financial status. If it's an other or special circumstance, that would be something more in the lines of, we needed the 21 tax information, and in the year 2021, we made $1 million with our business. But last year, just before school started, we went bankrupt. That's an other or special circumstance. Or my parents, my dad, who is the sole provider of our family, just lost his job, or my parents just retired. These are other special circumstances that are different from unusual circumstances. Both can request overrides or aid adjustments, but they can only be awarded through the director of the financial aid of the college that student is going to. In other words, you can't award it, I can't award it, Dominica can't award it. It has to be the financial aid office, usually the director, that will grant these overrides based on these circumstances. Now, just be forewarned, should a student fall into one of these categories, they simply need to provide whatever documented documentation is requested of them from that financial aid office. It will vary, but it's pretty open right now, and they're narrowing it down and making it a little more list wise so that you can be able to get documentation to be able to help a student provide the proof of these special or particularly unusual circumstances that may fall in line with parents being separated from their kids or being missing in action or whatever the case may be. So just know that it's possible. More details will be coming and will be available on that. Okay, so then what happens if the student is dependent, which will be 90% of the cases with this new FAFSA, is that students will be inviting their parents to fill out the form. This happens in real time. So if a parent and a student who already have their accounts, they did that now or weeks ago, so they both have their accounts. Now they're coming to one sitting to fill out the FAFSA. They could realistically fill out the FAFSA in that second sitting right then and there, because if they're together, the student invites the parent, it goes to them immediately in real time. All the student has, all the parent has to do is accept that invitation, log in, and they can separately or simultaneously continue to fill out the FAFSA with their student. So they can get that done and realistically fill out the FAFSA in that one sitting. So again, it's sent in real time, which makes it really nice. What happens after they fill out the FAFSA? I think there's no, let's go back to this. They wait 1 to 3 days for it to be processed. So the old days where they would automatically or with this old FAFSA, you could submit the FAFSA and you would immediately get a response that said, congratulations, you have successfully submitted the FAFSA based on your EFC. That word EFC is going away. It will no longer exist. It will be now an SAI. Summation of award, I forget what the I stands for. We may be coming to it here. It may be listed here. Submission summary information, I think is what student aid index. There we go. It's called the student aid index, an SAI. So before they would immediately send you congratulations, you have successfully submitted the FAFSA based on your EFC, you are eligible for, and it gave you, provided nothing changed or you didn't do anything incorrectly, it would tell you right then and there what the student is eligible for. Now the student will have to wait 1 to 3 days and they'll get the student aid index. They'll receive the student aid index, and that will determine what they will be eligible for. And the lowest number on that will be a negative 1,500. If the student aid index is at a negative 1,500, they will be getting the full amount of the Pell Grant. And we'll go into the amounts of the Pell Grant in just a minute. So schools then take this SAI and they use that to create the entire package of financial aid. Again, keep in mind, state colleges will also use this SAI to award their state aid, and individual colleges will use that SAI to award their information. Again, 3 different buckets. So it's key that the student have and check their email, that good working email, that they check it pretty regularly, because all of this information will be coming through their email. And every time they get something from the federal government, the state government, or the college, they should open it up immediately in case there's something else they have to do, maybe submit a different form, maybe check a box that says, yes, I want this money. That usually happens with grant money. If a grant is awarded, in a lot of cases, they may have to go to the state higher education or the state financial aid website and click a box. That applies with us. They have to check a box, create an ACAP account to say, yes, I want this money. Then it doesn't go to the next person in line. So that's important to know too, that oftentimes there are additional steps that the student will have to do to get their money. Okay, so am I going over now? Somebody give me a time.
We are 1 minute to noon.
Okay, so I need to wrap this up. Okay, so let me So financial aid awards will be coming from colleges. Students should look at them. If they need an aid adjustment, they go directly to the financial aid office to get that. We went over the circumstances. I'm just gonna give you this if you want to take a photocopy on your phone. These are some financial aid boot camps that are coming up where you can get more information on the new FAFSA, the better FAFSA. Grants, the maximum amount is $7,395 for the 23-24 year. That information will be updated usually in July for the 425 FAFSA that's coming out, so it may be a little bit more. We have our state grant. The max is $4,000. The student can be eligible for both. There's also the Alaska Performance Scholarship. They can be eligible for all of those. I'll be going over the AEG and state financial aid on Thursday, so I'm not going to go over that now. We have many scholarships that are available. We recommend ACCIS to do scholarships on ACCIS, which you will learn through Julia Renfro's presentations. And primarily we recommend that over the other ones on this screen because they don't inundate you with a lot of junk and spam. And quite honestly, a student needs to be paying attention to what they're eligible and things they need to do. So they don't want to be inundated with all that other stuff. We talked about work study, loans. The bottom line with loans is there are federal loans, there are state loans, and there are private loans. It's always in the student's best interest to go with federal and state loans first in that order because of the lower interest rates and because of possible forgiveness if it's offered, and because of deferment and forbearance off arrangements should the student run into hard times. So we're not going to go into the details of those, but loans can be used in state or out of state. And if there's also exchange programs, make sure that you exhaust all options for WUI and other exchange programs if they're offered. If you need more information, our information is on the screen here, or a student can go directly to our website at acpe.alaska.gov, obviously through you guys as go-to people. If a student still needs help filling out a FAFSA, they can go directly to our website, scroll all the way down to the bottom in the black, click on the "You can book me" in the orange, and they can just schedule their own appointment. They can pick a calendar, opens up, and they schedule an appointment. I get back with them usually within 24 hours and help them fill it out. And of course, Dominica offers the FAFSA Time Alaska every Wednesday afternoon, and she can help groups complete their FAFSA as well if they need that help. Or you guys as go-to people can attend Dominica's
Master the FAFSA training.
Thank you. My nerves are getting frazzled because I'm a little bit over. This was my first time doing this presentation with the new information. So I'm open for questions if you guys have any. It's lunchtime. I know I don't want to keep you guys later, so my apologies for going over.
Thank you so much, Christina. I think you've answered all the questions. There was one question about the parent opening the invitation at a later time. So yes, that is correct. A possibility parents don't have to go right away and open that invitation right away. They can take whenever they are ready to
Yes.
fill out their portion. That's what they open it up. However, I believe there is an expiration date if the email isn't open within 30 days or something like that. But then we were told that FSA would be sending reminders to contributors.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to triple check. Thank you so much.
Okay.
If we don't have any other questions, I will stop the recording and